Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Fear the Walking Dead, an unofficial podcast about the AMC original series Fear the Walking Dead. This is your host Mufsin Mahbub, and I've watched every episode of the series so far. So if you're tuning in to this podcast for the first time, what I do here is basically give a bit of a recap and a thorough review of what I thought I liked or didn't like about the current week's episode. This week, we'll be discussing the episode which is titled TEOTWAWKI. To find more Hear the Walking Dead podcast on FilmBook.com, just search up the term Hear the Walking Dead. You can also email us at podcast@film-book.com by putting in Hear the Walking Dead in the subject line. We had a big surprise this week when, towards the end of the episode, we find out that Daniel is alive. I mean, there were some parts that I thought maybe it could be a hallucination that, Strand is thinking up while he's in solitary. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like Strand is in that place mentally where he starts seeing visions of dead people. So seeing this guy who claims to be Strand's guardian angel would be more fitting. But at the same time, I would rather have him be someone that Strand can actually talk to. Ends up being insane. I mean, if you remember, Daniel, I would say, yeah, the end of the second half of season 2. But if Daniel is back on the show, to hear about that sometime this week during the Austin Television Festival, Daniel. So, in case this is the real Daniel, Strand, he ends up confronting some sins, old acquaintances back into the picture. Strand was almost killed because of a scam artist that he once was, and now he has to basically atone for those sins. Going into the Broke Jaw Ranch, we end up seeing the Auto's long-running end times compound being stocked with food and weapons. I mean, Troy thankfully became a huge issue to deal with as the Clarks end up settling into their new home. Subject of which Troy did to them at the military compound, and possibly what he might still end up doing, was basically addressed head on, and it kind of helped out Jeremiah's sad attempt to change his brother. I mean, basically, it took an entire planet just to get overrun by zombies in order for this child to find his psychotic calling, as it proves to be useful in situations that require ruthlessness. If you talked with Otto maybe a few months earlier, before the world went to hell, he'd probably be more inclined to tackle Troy's issues head on. But in this scenario, he actually prepped this for, I would say, a few decades, and he just wants to look forward to building a better tomorrow. He wants to build a better future built with his hands, where he's able to guide society to his liking. But pretty much like Madison, his past is filled with family members who are drunks and are having hard times handling their emotions. So on that ground, he was able to find some middle ground with Madison. Troy has become more of a problem at this point. But for now, it feels like he's being pushed away as a focal point. Both Madison and Nick had separate, tense confrontations with him this week, with Nick's chat actually involving some roughhousing and even a weapon. And it felt like trouble that's being pulled up onto the surface more now than before, where it involves whoever it was that shot down the helicopter and killed Travis. But we ended the Broke Jaw story this week with Madison volunteering to help out, you know, to find out who attacked the helicopter. For all intents and purposes, TEOTWAWKI was more about the Clarks integrating into the Otto's business. Madison's intentions were to bring this entire place down if it came to that. But for now, it seems like they are at peace with both sides. Or at least it seems that way. Even Alicia was able to find some friendly company this week when she met some new friends. With this church group. And when I mean church group, it was more of a chat that turned into a weed session that kind of helped her line up the mood a little bit. I mean, for the first time since the show started, Alicia seems happy and connecting with people as she answered questions being asked by a walker head in a birdcage, which they call Jeff. Over on with the original series, there's been a few differences between those that are sheltered and those who are forced to fend for themselves out into the wasteland. It's not quite as different here in this show since we're not that far into the zombie apocalypse. But Alicia still seems to have seen a lot of bad stuff since the apocalypse started. I mean, way more than anyone else in Brokejaw, who's basically not a member of the militia. So we do see some darkness in her that ends up being turned into curiosity. But I would just like to say that TEOTWAWKI did address the Troy issue while also pushing it aside for a little bit. I like that some things needed to be said, but going forward, the Clarks are starting to actually bond with Troy the way Nick seems to be doing right towards the end of the installment. I mean, Troy may not have killed Travis, and those enemies seem to be more of a priority right now as we head into next week's episode. But he still did cause a lot of trouble that led into Travis's death. Having the return of Daniel during those final minutes was a nice touch, and I'm pretty happy to see that Ruin Blade is now back on the show. But that's it from me, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of Here to Walking Dead. You can find more of my work on film-book.com. All you gotta do is search up my name, Mufsin Mahbub, or you can search up the show, Here to Walking Dead. If you guys have any comments for me, you can also search me up on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is MufsinM. And if you listen to this podcast on iTunes or another podcast service, please rate and review this episode. Give us those 5-star ratings. If you're listening to this podcast on our YouTube channel, FilmBook Podcast, please like our video, subscribe to our channel, and even leave us a comment on the comment section. Tune in next week when we review the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead. Thanks for listening, Dead Walkers. We'll see you next time.